Israel is not our ally, and America didn't vote for you to look out for another nation's interests before our own. Lie after lie after lie after lie. It is exhausting. The conversation is here. You can have it or you can hide from it. But while you hide from it, Americans are having it without you.
So Ian Carroll recently revealed the madness and the evil that is Israel's character as it prepares to occupy Gaza, and just yesterday killed journalists in Al Jazeera in Gaza City. He also gets into how this has spilled over into domestic politics in the United States and how the Trump administration's dealing with it. I think there's a lot of interesting angles to this, so let's take a look. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
Support for Israel is fracturing. Every day, this conversation cracks wider and wider open, and ultimately, it's really just the boomers still holding together right-wing support for Israel, or all support for Israel. The youth are well woken up to it. Even at turning point events these days, a huge number of those young people look up to Charlie Kirk in some way, but also listen to Nick Fuentes. A lot of them stand for conservative values in America, but listen to Nick Fuentes. And every single week, there's just story after story after story to make it painfully obvious that the American government is occupied. Israel is scrambling to buy off as many young right-wing influencers as possible and fly them to Israel to give them the propaganda tour treatment and have them kiss the wall and all the rest of it. They have a goal to bring 550 influencer delegations to Israel by the end of the year because they really don't understand how this works anymore. American dignity is not for sale. And any young influencer that takes this paycheck, they only sell themselves and their future out. No one is interested in hearing someone shill paid talking points anymore, and we all see through it. So if you are a young influencer, even if you support Israel, don't do this.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we've seen this in other facets as well. There was a time where there was this mass project to convince a lot of influencers to say, hey, RFK's talked about, banning certain substances, and when it came to the coke lobby, it seems like a lot of people got paid to shill for the coke lobby and say, hey, I don't think you should ban these things. And guess what? I agreed with them, but there's no question they are paying influencers to get into this business, especially when it comes to Israel, especially as the atrocities rage on in Gaza. And look, Ian's right about Turning Point USA. It was mind-boggling to me to an extent that, so many young conservatives were willing to greet people like Tucker Carlson and Dave Smith with more applause for criticizing Israel and critiquing U.S. policy toward Israel than they were for Israel shills like Josh Hammer, who debated Dave Smith. There is a sea change going on right now. You're seeing it on the right, and I think it's a big deal because it used to be isolated to just like Pat Buchanan and Ron Paul on the right, but now you're seeing people wake up to this, and it's really interesting. It's a great dynamic, I think.
Because we will all see through you, and you will tarnish your entire future on the internet if you take this money. Because now we have the raw data, right? We can see what's happening. Another poll, this one by the Israel Democracy Institute, found that 67% of all Israelis are not troubled by people in Gaza starving to death. And you can see on the chart how Jewish identity is deeply tied into that perspective, as Jews, for obvious reasons, answered way higher than their Arab counterparts. It's completely inverse. The Arabs are obviously very concerned about the people starving to death in Gaza. And 55.6% of the Jewish people said that they are not at all troubled by it. God's chosen people seem incredibly unbothered by everyone else, particularly non-Jews, starving to death.
I mean, that's eerie. It's almost unbelievable. I mean, if a pocket of the United States was carved out and people were treated as the Palestinians, like half of them children are being treated right now, I just can't imagine that Americans would stand for it. But it's the product of propaganda, and Americans were gripped by that same kind of propaganda after 9/11, after the bombing of the USS Cole, etc. This was a propaganda campaign started by Zionists, the most zealous Greater Israel Project Zionists, and it's fed to the populace. And yeah, not enough people dissent from that. There are dissidents within Israel. Even Yair Golan and Ehud Olmert, to an extent, have very much criticized those policies, but it's not enough. And Netanyahu's evil, but he's only a figurehead for an entire movement that's genocidal, and what they're doing in Gaza is exactly that. And I just don't see how this can be acceptable. In generations in the future, people will look back at anyone complicit in this madness and judge them harshly for it, rightly so, I think. So, yeah, this is a stunning phenomenon that you're seeing, that such a wide majority in Israel is supporting this garbage. And I just hope that, in other parts of the world, it would not be that high. I just can't think it would be that high in the United States. It really just highlights the extent to which Israel is not the ally of the United States. Israel is a leech that takes money from the United States in the form of billions of dollars a year to subvert the U.S. and its interests, and to get us into fruitless regime change wars like we just had on the table in Iran, and to bankroll this genocide. That's what it is.
This week, we also had Bibi Netanyahu come out and just outright on Fox News say that Israel will be reoccupying Gaza and taking the land for themselves. I mean, turning it over to civilian governance. Right. Not even going to get into it. There's so many other things that he lied about in that interview that is just, I'm over it. I'm over interfacing with Israeli doublespeak that are just lies, like lie after lie after lie after lie. It is exhausting.
It is lie after lie after lie. This whole propaganda campaign in Gaza is a mountain of lies. It's the manifestation of that mountain. And to sell atrocities to people who are innately opposed to them, you need propaganda. And that's what this whole thing is. Now, there is some news to the extent that, he's walking that back a bit. They're not going to occupy now. He says that Trump opposes it, even though Trump in a press conference says, it's going to be up to Israel. There's something fishy with this. But I think ultimately, they will occupy Gaza. They will annex it. They will create concentration zones like Israel Katz wants. And that's what we're going to get out of this. I can't see otherwise. And that there doesn't seem to be nearly enough pushback in the United States against it. And the U.S. and the taxpayers within it are bankrolling this, of course.
Also this week, Trump moved to ban DEI on university campuses, except in regard to Jews. Like facts don't care about your feelings unless your feelings are Jewish. And Glenn Greenwald, a prominent Jew in the media, called this out. It is so bizarre that many on the right claim that the Trump admin is destroying DEI at universities. They are doing so for every group except the favored one, to serve U.S.'s one sole oppressed minority group, American Jews. Look at what they're forcing Brown to do. For them only. Brown, item A right here. Brown is committed to taking significant, proactive, effective steps to combat anti-Semitism and ensure a campus environment free from harassment and discrimination. These shall include actions to support a thriving Jewish community, research and education about Israel, and a robust program in Judaic studies through outreach to Jewish day school students to provide information about applying to Brown, resources for religiously observant Jewish community members, renewed partnerships with Israeli academics and national Jewish organizations, support for enhanced security at the Brown RISD Hillel, and a convening of alumni, students, and faculty to celebrate 130 years of Jewish life at Brown in the 2025-2026 academic year. Conduct a survey in 2025 to evaluate the campus climate for Brown students, including the climate for students with shared Jewish ancestry, and evaluate social media harassment. The United
Sure seems like safe spaces to me. This is just a different flavor of the safe spaces that right-wingers made fun of for something like 10 years under the previous DEI regime. Well, this is exactly that, just oriented toward Judaism. It's a special carve-out, but no doubt this is DEI. That's exactly what this is. It's just a different flavor of DEI that's acceptable to the Republican base, the Republican establishment, the Israel lobby, and apparently the president, Donald Trump.
States and Brown shall jointly choose this external party. So they're going to do a big survey and ask students, at the bottom here, whether they feel welcome at Brown, whether they feel safe reporting anti-Semitism at Brown, whether they believe Brown has responded appropriately to reports of alleged anti-Semitic conduct. We're going to do all these surveys and studies to make sure that Jewish students at Brown are feeling safe and good and just, which is like, yeah, it would be like, yeah, let's not threaten people. Like, let's
distribute teddy bears and blankets while we're at it. This is absolutely preposterous. It's insane. And anyone that did attack the woke regime should see this exactly for what it is, if you're being consistent with your principles.
Let's all feel safe. Agreed. But in the same document, Brown shall not maintain programs that promote unlawful efforts to achieve race-based outcomes, quotas, diversity targets, or similar efforts. Brown will cease any provisions of benefits or advantages to individuals on the basis of protected characteristics in any school, component, division, department, foundation, association, or element within the entire Brown University system, unless you're Jewish, right? So we're all done with DEI. DEI, no more. No more discrimination and special treatment for protected groups. Now we will be basing everything on merit. Except if you're Jewish, we'll double down on special treatment for Jewish students because we are to believe that somehow Jewish people are the victims of some global evil force. Somehow Jews are disadvantaged and need protection, despite our own eyes quite clearly showing us that Jews are currently the most privileged and protected group on the planet, certainly in America.
There's a lot of economic evidence to indicate this, that especially Ashkenazi Jews make a lot more income, have more stable, employment in many regards, and excel in terms of IQ and other measures like that. But they are being made out to be, this uniquely terrorized people. It's absolutely preposterous. Again, this is a special carve-out just for Jews in the same way that there were carve-outs under the woke DEI regime for, women or children or whatever characteristic du jour that the regime wanted to have to say that this is a victimized class. They need to be propped up by special privileges, special scholarships, special opportunities that others wouldn't have. This is just divide and conquer. This is a way to divide people against each other because of special categories and categorizations of rights, categorizations of privileges, and things like that. It's only going to stir dissension. Conservatives, I think, were right when they said, yeah, why do you want more gun control laws? There's already laws against murdering people and killing people. That's not something that you're just going to prevent just by passing laws. But in this case, they'll say, hey, we need to have these special privileges and safe spaces and programs for Jewish students, even though there's, to protect them from harassment. But there's already laws on the books against murder and harassment and violent assault and things like that apply to everyone, rightly so. So why these special carve-outs? It's the same thing we see in the Israel first mentality when it comes to, say, nuclear weapons. Israel's the only country in the Middle East that's allowed to have a secret nuclear weapon program, not subject to IAEA inspections, not part of the NPT. You're seeing these special carve-outs, and it's only raising animosities toward Jewish people for wrong reasons. We shouldn't have these things. If you really want to, end anti-Semitism, what's the best way to expand it? It's programs like this. And it's to double down on what's happening in Gaza. That's what. Right?
This group that is wildly overrepresented in banking and media and tech, and cool, sure, more power to you. Just don't say that you're, a victim. Last week, we talked about how a national coalition of billionaires and politicians mobilized to destroy the life of a girl in Florida that got in an argument with a Jew on campus. This group, who is getting speech laws passed in America to ban everyone from saying anything mean about them, or even anything that's just true but could be construed as inconvenient or critical of them or the state of Israel. Right? And last week, Congress called recess and ran off as fast as possible to avoid voting on Massey's bill to unseal the Epstein documents. No time to vote on that. Congress needs to go on vacation and spend time in their districts with their constituents. And so they all flew to Israel to presumably film a gangbang with Bibi Netanyahu. I mean, seriously, this isn't normal. Find me an example of this ever happening before in American history.
Yeah, this is evidence of an occupied country, that is their natural constituency, not the people back home who they purport to represent. No, it's Netanyahu. It's taking photo ops on the Wailing Wall and crying just so you can get that credence from the Israel lobby that supports you, that bankrolls you in return for political favors. And guess what those are? That's endless streams of money for regime change wars, for the apartheid state, for the genocide in Gaza, and for everything Israel wants to draw the U.S. into. And guess what? There are complicit forces in the U.S. totally aligned with this too. It's the banking cartel, the central banks, it's the military-industrial complex, it's all the neocons and most of the liberal establishment too, and that's what you get from these policies. This is the Israel first mentality, and that picture alone is indicative of what kind of plague this is. But hey, thankfully there's some countervailing forces against this, with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene calling this for what it is, a genocide, and saying that she is America first, not Israel first. You got Thomas Massey trying to expose Mike Johnson for closing down the congressional session rather than having an actual vote on revealing the Epstein files. No, hanging out with Netanyahu and covering for his atrocities is more important than that.
Since when did our whole government go on field trips together to any of our allies like this? Like even to Canada or Great Britain, right? Like leaving out the bribes and the propaganda and the blackmail that we all know is involved in this visit and this allegiance. This is treason. And everyone in this photo should stand trial. Israel is not our ally, and America didn't vote for you to look out for another nation's interests before our own. This is the elephant in the room. This is the state of American politics today. The JQ is going mainstream because of shit like this. The conversation is here. You can have it or you can hide from it. But while you hide from it, Americans are having it without you.
That's exactly right. This is above saying that this is just a warped set of priorities. These are duplicitous priorities, and people wonder why there's so much anti-Israeli sentiment going on. Well, just look at this kind of propensity, that while a genocide is going on in Gaza, you have, something like 350 U.S. representatives voting Israel first on everything, whatever Israel's government wants, and these kind of photo ops. It really reveals the natural constituency that is the American political establishment. It's not you and I. It's not Joe Blow trying to start a business. It's not a single mom trying to get education for her children and buy groceries. It's the Israel lobby, and it's the military-industrial complex. It's big pharma, big food, and it is the banking apparatus that props it all up, puts us all into debt to fund it and support it, despite the fact that, hey, it raises prices. It causes inflation to print money to finance all of this madness. And that's what it is. It's the corporate welfare machine. It's the military machine. It's the empire building scheme. And all of it comes back to, at least to some extent, part of the response to the Israel lobby. It's taken such a foothold on American politics that this is the natural result. And I don't think it's going to change anytime soon. I agree with, people like Breitbart, who said politics is downstream from culture. And you are seeing something of a cultural shift right now on Israel, including on the right, like we talked about earlier. But I think it's going to take some time to actually manifest in political changes, maybe 10 years. In the same way, like anti-slavery mentality, took some years to manifest in political changes, from the late 1940s to 1865. That was the case there. It was the case in terms of resistance from the American colonies to the Great Britain, from the Stamp Act in 1765 to, Lexington and Concord in 1775. It takes time to change, and I'm hoping that will happen, because it's usually older curmudgeons and boomers that are more likely to support this stuff in overwhelming margins. That's not everyone, including many people watching this show I know do not fit into that category and would take exception to that, but generalities speaking, younger people are starting to oppose this nonsense more and more. So yeah, Israel has revealed its criminal nature. It revealed it from the start of its disproportionately violent campaign against October 7th, as if, history began October 6th, and the Palestinians weren't dealing with murderous atrocities, an apartheid state, an open-air prison, the devaluation of human life, the devaluation of human dignity, and blockades and strict border crossings and no rights in comparison to their Israeli neighbors. So anytime I heard the whole thing about how, hey, Israel's, the only democracy in the Middle East, it's a beacon of freedom amongst a vast, region of totalitarianism. Well, it kind of depends on which side of the wall that you were born on, doesn't it? If you were in Gaza and in the West Bank as a Palestinian, I don't think it really has freedom ringing from shore to shore, or from the river to the sea, or wherever the Palestinians are. I think that that's a subjugated class of people, and it's because of the Israeli government and U.S. support for it. And that's where we're at today. Israel has revealed its criminal nature, its evil nature, and I don't think it stops until the U.S. stops bankrolling this madness. That's where we're at. I appreciate Ian covering it. He made some great points about how this spills over to domestic policy, too, in regard to the DEI regime. The DEI regime is a bipartisan phenomenon. There's a, left-wing flavor and a right-wing flavor. There's a liberal flavor and a Republican flavor. And we're seeing the special carve-out on the Republican side to be, propping up Jews despite the fact that they're, disproportionately, in positions of power in media and academia and, IQ tests and per capita income and all sorts of other categories like that in comparison to other people. But still the carve-outs because Israel first, and that's the U.S. mentality. So that's where we're at. Let me know down below, do you agree with Ian on this? Do you see spillover effects from our foreign policy in Israel come into this DEI regime? Do you see any end to the slaughter in Gaza? And what would it take for that to end? Let me know down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Ian also. He is awesome. Love his podcast. Thank you for covering this, Ian. And please consider becoming a YouTube member. If you click the join button below, you can support the channel, and in return, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on my channel. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.